This one's a little bit more complicated to solve. What we have to do is some factoring here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move everything to one side. So I have 9 sine squared minus 6 sine minus 1 is equal to 0. Now to factor this, some of you guys might be good at factoring, some of you guys might not be so good at factoring. What I'm going to do before I start my factoring is I'm going to do a substitution. And so I'm going to say, let's let u be equal to sine x. If I do that, I get 9u squared minus 6u minus 1 equals 0. Now that's a little bit more palatable. So what we're going to do here is try to factor this. Now some of you guys might not be that good at factoring. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a little trick for it. I'm going to take the first guy and the last guy and multiply them together to get 9. So 9 times negative 1, well, negative 9. Okay. Now I'm going to look at all the different ways that I can factor negative 9. Well, it could be negative 1 times positive 9, or it could be positive 1 times negative 9. It could be negative 3 times positive 3, or 3 times negative 3, which is the same thing, right? So these are my 3 different options. Now the question is, which one of these add to get me negative 6? Or do any of them add to get me negative 6? So it looks like I can't go ahead and immediately factor that. Hang on 1 second, something doesn't look right. Okay, so I originally thought this guy was going to factor, but let's assume it doesn't factor nicely. So if I can't factor it, okay, way number 1, try to factor this guy. If that doesn't work, way number 2 is, you could do one of two things. You could complete the square, which is not going to be popular, or we can use the quadratic formula. Okay, this is the route I'm going to go here. So my a value is 9, my b value is negative 6, my c value is negative 1. Oh, real quick here, I was looking to see if any of these guys added or subtracted to give me negative 6, and none of them do. If one of them did, I would replace that and I would do factoring by grouping. So factoring trinomials by grouping. Lots of videos out there on how to factor using this technique. In fact, I've got some of them out there so you can search them. Let's go ahead and apply this. So what we have here is that u, not x, but u is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So let's go ahead and do that out. So that implies that u is equal to 6, that's negative b, plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. So that would be 6 plus or minus the square root. So this is going to give me 36 plus another 36 over 18. Okay, so that's what u is equal to, right? And so u is equal to 6 plus the square root of 2 times 36 over 18. So that implies that u is equal to 6 plus or minus, I forgot my minus here, huh? Plus or minus 6 square root of 2 over 18. And that implies that u is equal to, let's see here, we can divide everything here by 6. So I get 1 plus or minus the square root of 2 over 3. So there's 2 answers there, right? And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and check to make sure that that we've worked our way all the way down here correctly. So I'm just going to grab a quick program like this. I'm just going to say, go ahead and factor 9u squared minus 6u minus 1. Okay. Now it gave me something ugly in here, right? So this isn't really something that's easy to work with. But let's say we said solve this equal to 0. That'll give me something that's a little bit more useful to play with. Now you notice that I've got 1 minus the square root of 2 over 3 and 1 plus the square root of 2 over 3. So that's exactly what I've got here, right? We got those two answers. Now, what am I going to do with those? Well, that's what u is equal to. But u was sine x. So this implies that the sine of x is equal to either 1 plus the square root of 2 over 3 or sine x is equal to 1 minus the square root of 2 over 3. Okay, now let's just check out these guys as numbers. Okay, so 1 plus the square root of 2 over 3. And the reason I'm doing that, so I want the whole thing over 3. Then again, the reason that I'm doing this is to see if either of them fall outside of the range from -1 to +1, because otherwise we can't even look at them as possible solutions. The reason for that is because sine isn't defined. Doesn't have values. Now those guys fall between -1 and 1, so they're both solutions. They look pretty ugly. So how are we going to solve this? Well, what I'm going to do, first, this first guy right here, it's approximately equal to 0.8, right? So since this is approximately equal to 0.8, I know that there's the following. On the interval from 0 to 2 pi, the interval that we're looking at, I know that sine, which is height, should be at a height of 0.8 roughly here and roughly here. So two different angles. So there's two answers out here. Now watch what happens. To solve this, I've got to go ahead and use the arc sine. So x is equal to arc sine of 1 plus the square root of 2 over 3. So I'm going to compute this. Okay, I'm going to do this out using a calculator or something. So we'll just say, what is the arc sine of 1 plus the square root of 2 divided by 3? And that didn't quite match things up like I wanted it to. Okay, so arc sine, I guess it thinks I have too many parentheses in there. Maybe I do. No. Well, it looks like it's going to be alright. So, the question is, what's the arc sine? And it's giving me a radian result, an angle of 0.935. Okay? Same thing if I do it here. If I ask, what is the arc sine? There's my 0.935. And again, if I ask, what is the arc sine of this guy? I get that. So those are my two answers. So 0.935. What this says is this angle right here, this angle, x, is 0.935 radians. So what is that in degrees? Well, if we just multiply this guy by 180 and divide it by pi, we get about 54 degrees. Okay, so it's approximately 54 degrees. So if I plug in 54 degrees into here, this equation balances. Okay, or 54 degrees. Now, how do I get the other one? Well, arc sine is only going to spit out answers on this interval. So how do I get this guy? Well, I know that this angle should be the same as this angle, right? Because they're both at the same height. So that means if I take 180 or pi and I subtract this angle, I'll get this angle. So the reason, if I take a full revolution and subtract off this angle, I'll get this angle right here, which is what I want. So what I'm going to do is put an and x is equal to pi minus 0.935 radians. So if I take, oh, I didn't mean to do that. Well, pi minus 0.935 is about 2.2 radians. Okay, so the other answer is about 2.2. And if you want that as a degree, just multiply it. Take that whole guy, multiply it by 180 divided by pi. So about 126 degrees. Okay, so it gives you this first angle here, and it gives you the second angle here. Now those are the only ones that have a sign value that's positive like that. Now we've solved these two. I bet you there's two solutions here. Let's go ahead and see if we can figure them out. So what we need to do is take the arc sine of 1 minus the square root of 2 over 3. What that's going to give us, there's two answers. There's two guys out there. There's two angles whose sine value is 1 minus the square root of 2 over 3, and they both fall here and here. Well, close enough. That doesn't actually even look close at all. So let's fix that. Just like that. So this guy and this guy. Now, when I do this out on the calculator, it's going to give me this guy, this negative 0.14, we'll say. Okay, so it'll give me negative 0.14. That right there is this guy, this angle right here. However, I want them both to be positive. So the first thing I need to do is to get this angle right here. But I know this angle and this angle are the same. So what that tells me is if I take 180 and I add 0.14 to the pi, I shouldn't say 180, I should say pi. So pi plus 0.14, right? Because we want to take this angle and add to it that little bit to get this full angle right here. And I know that these two angles are the same, and this angle is negative 0.14, so this has got to be 0.14 right here. So I'll get this, which is 3.28 approximately, right? Because this is 3.14 plus 0.14. Now the other angle is here, like that. And so what I need to do is I take 2 pi and subtract, because this length is 0.14 radians, right? So 2 pi minus 0.14 6.14, we'll say roughly. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4 answers. Now let's check them. So we've got 9 times sine x squared minus 6 times sine x, and we want to know when is that thing equal to a height value of 1 on the interval 0 to 2 pi. So here's 0, there's 1 answer, 2 answers, 3 answers, 4 answers. 0.935, 2.2, 0.935, 2.2, 3.28, and 6.14. 3.28, 6.14. So I've gotten all 4 of my answers out algebraically using the quadratic formula, okay, or possibly factoring, which didn't work in this case, but using the quadratic formula and solving.